Hello there and welcome back to another review. So we're going to be looking at a very different film for you guys today, and that is Ken Russell's The Lair of the White Worm. I do try and mix things up on my channel as and when I can. I know a lot of you really, you do enjoy, well, I like to think you do enjoy like the Hong Kong and Kung Fu movie reviews, but I do try and mix things up a little bit on my channel, just like say with regards to sort of cult movies, forgotten movies, weird movies, rubbish movies, whatever you want to be. But I thought we'd have a look at Lair of the White Worm today, made in 1988. And starring Amanda Donohoe, Catherine Oxenberg, and with a very early role for Hugh and Peter Capaldi. Now, this was another one of their movies I caught on the horror channel in the UK when I was probably in my early teens when I first saw it, and it was a film I never ever forgot. Ken Russell, if you don't know, is like most famous directing movies like The Devils, Altered States, and Tommy with The Who. The story of this is sort of based on the Bram Stoker novel of the same name, incorporates elements of English folklore tale of I think it's the Lambton Worm. It's like an old English tale. So now make no mistake about this, like this movie was a flop. The film, right, it didn't do at all well. It really didn't do that. I think it only made about half of its budget back, if that. And the critics were not in favour of it at all, whether that be because of the subject matter or just the fact Russell was involved. But like many movies like this, over the years it's developed, I would say, somewhat of a cult following. Make no mistake, this is not a horror film to take seriously. There aren't like sort of laughs every second or throughout the movie, but there is a dark undercurrent of humour there to the film, and there is a sense of humour which aids to the film enormously. There's a campiness to the movie, right? There's a campiness to where you can tell even the actors are not taking it seriously. I think originally Russell had written an adaptation of Dracula, but they decided to sort of go with Lair of the White Worm or something along them lines. Now, like I say, he did incorporate elements of the Lambton Worm, which is even sort of like a Loch Ness monster thing about it, like probably more than likely 99% doesn't exist, but you never know. And this is one of them movies that I enjoy very much, but I can't necessarily explain why, which is an odd concept, especially when you're doing a movie review. It's sometimes hard. You think, okay, I like this movie, but I'm not even sure I can explain why. It's not like the film breaks any new ground, and it's actually quite tacky and cheap in places, but there's a certain charm and, like I say, almost light-heartedness to the movie that makes it enjoyable. Like, there's no huge meaning to the film, there's no huge payoff, and in many ways you could argue that the movie is just a load of nonsense, right? You could argue it's just a load of crap, but that is what I love about it. It's the kind of movie you can put on, shut your brain off for 90 minutes, and it really is about as B movies you can get, and I think it's, to me, light-hearted entertainment. I know, like, Hugh has been embarrassed by the movie in later years, but make no mistake, there's still a lot to be enjoyed in The White Worm. I mean, this is not like a masterclass in cinema, right, or anything like that. Some of the acting is awful, sometimes it is badly edited and even badly scored, but I can always watch it. And this is one of the movies that every time you watch it, there may be sort of a subtle gag or joke that you overlook, sometimes intentional, sometimes unintentional. But one of them movies, there always seems to be something new to discover sort of every time I watch it. Now, I'm not usually ever in favour of remakes and rehashes, but it would be interesting if someone was to remake this movie and see what they come up with and what they could do. Like, maybe if somebody like Edgar Wright done a remake of this, I think that would be quite interesting. But the fact it was made like in the later 80s, the fact the effects are so cheap, and the cast sometimes have a look of, even on their faces sometimes, they do have a look of, what the hell am I doing? Like, why am I in this movie? But they all add to it. But it really is Amanda Donohoe who steals the show, who basically spends the whole runtime just looking hot and wearing very little. So she sort of steals the movie. So the film starts with Capaldi playing Angus Flint, digging up this like giant skull. Next we go to this party that is like this huge worm puppet as like the main entertainment on the dance floor. Already the film is off to a trippy, weird Ken Russell start. So whilst at this party we meet Hugh Grant as James Dampton, whose ancestors slew the local dragon. See, when that's the setup, right, that's the premise, how can you take a film like this seriously? And this is all in like the first 10 minutes. And he owns the land where Flint is staying with the Trent sisters, Eve and Mary. And I love it when the policeman Ernie goes to investigate this intruder and he phones his friend. There's, like, again, really funny joke, which could easily be like any other movie, where he phones his friend Charlie to come up and help him. He's like, well, I can't go there, you have the car. So it's like, because they're in like part of rural England. He's like, well, get a taxi. Then he goes, well, I've locked up the taxi driver for drunk driving. Because like they're very limited on sort of the amount of vehicles they have, and like the one cab driver that's there, they've locked him up because he was driving while drunk. But that's what I mean about the humour. Is with things like that in the movie, I don't think you can afford to take it really seriously. Ernie meets Lady Sylvia Marsh, played by Donohoe, who's dressed like something. When you first see her, she's dressed like something like a character from Assassin's Creed or something like that. He gets bit, and just so you know, like she's like sort of just sucks the poison out of his leg. Also, the police has found this like watch belonging to the Trent's father in this like cabin, and whilst going into the house, Marsh steals the skull that Flint has dug up, then spits some venom all over this like crucifix. And you have to love how she just walked into this house when Sylvia just goes into this house. You have to love how like there's nobody there. She's just able to walk in quite easily, quite happily, with not being compromised or anything like that. I mean, talk about good timing. When Eve Trent, Oxenberg's character Eve Trent, who is like, she's sort of dating Hugh Grant, she finds this venom, and she has like this weird trippy hallucination of this like plastic snake wrapped around a crucifix, and these soldiers sort of raping some people with some very trippy far out orange bright colour palette going on here. So Marsh picks up this young male hitchhiker called Kevin, who was looking for a ride back to his like youth hostel, and for some reason she just drives around in her stockings, and back at her she just wears the usual fire boots and underwear, and decides to give just randomly decides to give Kevin, this guy, a bath. Then she sort of proceeds to paralyse him by biting his thingy, as naturally, of course, she wants him for a sacrifice. So Hugh Grant calls round about Ernie's ankle. He's like sort of her neighbour, right? He's like sort of Marsh's neighbour, and he has like, at this point, he has like an RAF uniform on for some reason. I don't know why, but he just turns up in this sort of RAF uniform. Sylvia's like in her place as well. She has like next to no furniture, and she gives him this sob story saying she hates snakes and that she feels sorry for the Trent girls and what's gone on and everything like that. So then Hugh Grant has this really trippy scene where he's like on a plane where Sylvia and one of the Trent girls are like air hostesses, if I can talk properly. And the imagery is, like I say, really trippy. It's really odd, some of the things you see in this movie, and when they sort of get into a fight, we get to see Hugh like measuring his boner level via the aid of like a pen. Like there's like a parallel between a pen and sort of what's going on down there, which is almost like a joke out of like Naked Gun or like Airplane or something like that. So this cabin where the watch was found is meant to be the lair of the Dampton worm. After Hugh Grant has this like weird dream that then he wants to sort of investigate, and after having their sandwich break, like he thinks like the watch may have passed through the worm's excrement. Also, while we're on the subject, if you like a movie like this about like sort of cults and people like worshipping like a serpent god, and a film worth checking out is The Borderlands, starring Gordon Kennedy, which, if you've never seen The Borderlands, it's a fantastic, amazing found footage British horror, and it's, as I say, there's sort of elements of this movie in that movie, like there's the idea of, like I say, people worshipping this sort of, I won't spoil too much about it, but as I say, it's a found footage film, but they basically go to investigate this church because there's been some sort of paranormal activity there. And you watch that again, that's another film, it does have humour in it, but it's great performances in that film. But so go and check out The Borderlands if you haven't seen it. I'm sure it's on Blu-ray, but as I say, go and pick it up because it's an amazing movie. So Sylvia meets Eve, who is just laying in a tree with her, leggings and heels on and wants her to come back to Temple House, right? And after laying on her sunbed, she reveals like she is immortal and seen people reincarnate, and something to do with her like order wanting to build a covenant over a sacred temple or something along these lines. And then she brings out this massive dildo, okay, and tells her that she will be sacrificed to like, I think it's Dionin, I think is the name. Anyway, she's going to be sacrificed. At this point, she is like hypnotized, and Oxenberg's performance in this is sort of questionable at best. When I say some of the acting in this movie is not entirely great, particularly Oxenberg's performance is, like I say, it's some of it you do raise a bit of an eyebrow at. So in her trance-like state, she's sort of roped into phoning her sisters to say that she'll be going away. And you have to love how Mary, Flint and Hugh are all like having spaghetti. Even at the party at the start of the movie, they're all eating what seems to be like worms. How this some of the spread that Hugh Grant's got going on. So after phoning the station and realise none of these things are gone, they realise, right, something is up. Flint knows that Dionin is like a pagan god. They deduce that Temple House was once a, wait for it, a temple house. Like maybe it was a temple. I mean, the clue is right in the name. So, and James Dampton suspects Sylvia Marsh and starts playing this like loud snake charmer music at one point, which is the most literal, in the most literal way possible, lures Sylvia out so Mary and Flint can sort of sneak in. Mary gets bitten by like her mum, who's watching this like woman with a snake on TV, and Peter sucks the poison out. And I loved how he is so courteous, he like finds a glass when he's sort of sucking this like poison out. Anyway, so she gets bitten, he has to suck this poison out, like I say, and out of nowhere she goes to attack Hugh, who slices her in half, she has like this sort of snake vampire form quite literally going on, but yeah, he sort of like slices her in half with a sword, no less, and we see some standard but practical effects here with like the legs like coming through the floor, and it's quite obvious how they've sort of done that shot. So Ernie picks up Mary, saying she was to identify the body, but of course you remember Ernie the policeman. This isn't Ernie the policeman. And have to love when they have like the driving scenes in this movie. There's no, in some old movies, especially sort of black and white movies, but here as well, there's no actual windscreen. It's quite obvious, it was filmed on a set or, something like that. Now, I'm not the biggest Hugh Grant fan in the world, make no mistake about that. I'm really not, but he actually plays the part quite well in this movie. His usual typical Hugh Grant type of role, usual upper class snotty type you'd come to expect from him. But he actually, to be fair, I know he's a bit ashamed of this movie now, but his performance in this is not actually like too bad. So Ernie is trying to take Mary to Sylvia, but she like susses it and suddenly runs away. And if you watch this bit, she is like 100 yards down the driveway in like a matter of seconds. If you watch this scene at the end of the movie when she tries to get away, she's like, this driveway is absolutely massively long, but before like she starts to take off, and she's like at the end of it in like a matter of seconds. So Flint lures Ernie out, who is now like he's in this like snake form, which you can't take seriously, and he gets stabbed through the eyeball, backwards I might add. And for the most part, some of the practical effects in the movie are actually quite entertaining. Like I say, entertaining and funny, maybe unintentionally, but as I say, it's still entertaining nonetheless. So Sylvia takes Peter, and she is now like blue. She's topless and like drags him behind this curtain. In the lair, Eve is in her panties, and I think in the script she was originally meant to be nude. I think I did read or hear somewhere that I think Ken Russell actually wanted her nude at one point, but Oxenberg was not having any of that apparently. So Mary is chained up and Peter is paralysed, so it's looking pretty grim for our unlikely heroes at this point. Sylvia in her snake like makeup starts to walk towards Eve, equipped with the massive dildo comes back again. And it makes me laugh how Sylvia sort of unties her feet as this like snake god is like coming, and she could have so easily like kneed her in the face at this point and tried to make a break for it. Like she could have easily tried to do something. So this is where the film turns into a bit of sort of semi-creature feature, and this is where I'd love to see, talking about a remake, like how it would look now, because I think sometimes, like I say, I'm not always in favour of remakes and reboots and rehashes, but when it's sort of like cult films that not many people have seen, or sort of unheard of, or sort of lesser known movies, I think sometimes it's almost warranted, because you think there is a good film lurking in there, and you just wish sometimes like some people would do a different take on it. I get annoyed when they remake a film that was perfect anyway. That's what really annoys me, when you have a film that is fine just the way it is. We don't need another remake. We don't need a remake of it. We don't, just leave it as it is. A perfect example of that would be RoboCop, you know. Not saying the remake was bad, but I'm just saying the original RoboCop is such a classic. Just leave it as it is, you know. Just don't mess with it. But anyway, at the end, it does turn into a bit of a creature feature. Because as I say, the end, it does look a bit cheesy. It is a bit cheesy. As you probably guess, it's actually Silvio falls into the snake pit, and for some reason out of nowhere, Angus has like a grenade in his kilt, which he throws into the worm's mouth. And meanwhile, it's Hugh Grant's character who got the worm out with this like... Hugh Grant is like, he manages to get it out with this like potholing crew. But you know, whatever. But so it's a bit of twist at the end where it turns out Angus was given the wrong serum by the pharmacy, so he's basically still infected, and reveals it, you know, his bite as him and sort of Hugh Grant sort of drive away. So it's sort of left on a bit of an open-ended, not a cliffhanger, but it's like, oh no, he's been bit, but he hasn't sort of revealed he's been bit. Anyway, quickly wrapping up the review. But like I say, I can't say it's I can't even say, excuse me, it's a good movie. Like, it's bad, it's cheesy, it's funny, it's quite light-hearted, and even all like the surreal adult nature of some of the images. It's not played too heavily, like these things are implied, but you don't see anything that is sort of downright overly shocking or hugely shocking. It's just, like I say, it's just a surreal, bizarre, almost light-hearted creature feature horror movie. You know, and the film would fail miserably if there wasn't this sort of like cheeky wink and grin that is sort of running through it. Like, you can tell, despite everything you see in the movie, it's not taking itself too seriously, and I do love films like that where they like, it's almost like the filmmakers know what they're doing is stupid, they know it's silly, but it's almost like to the audience, just go with it, have fun with it. And that's exactly how Lair of the White Worm should be enjoyed, you know, and just don't take it too seriously. But if you have seen this movie, let me know what you think of it. As I say, I saw it ages now. It was late one night and I was probably in my teens, and it's been one of them movies that I haven't met overly that amount of people that have seen this movie or even know of it, but I think it's worth checking out, especially if you like sort of old school sort of like horror movies that maybe are sort of a bit lesser known. As I say, there's nothing else, just watch it for a very, very early performance from Hugh Grant. But if you have seen the movie, make sure to let me know in the comments below what you thought of the film. So thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you again soon.
Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.